I'm Destin Harrison, and you're listening to the GigSalad Greenroom interviews. I remember when I was about 6 years old, sitting at my grandparents' house, eating a bowl of my Nana's macaroni and cheese, watching one of my favorite TV shows, Blue's Clues. I absolutely loved Blue's Clues. I specifically remember watching the episode when Steve went off to college, and all of the emotions I felt at the time. Is Steve going to be okay? What's he going to do after college? Will I ever see him again? After Steve Burns moved on from Blue's Clues, all kinds of rumors started about why he actually quit the show and what happened to him afterwards. A lot of people actually thought that he died shortly after his final episode of Blue's Clues. And to be honest, I started to get a little curious myself. After a bit of research, I found out that not only is Steve Burns still alive, he's taken on several different projects since his time on Blue's Clues, including an upcoming album that he's recorded with Stephen Drozd of the Flaming Lips. It's called Foreverywhere. So we're here with Steve Burns, or as many of his fans know him, Steve from Blue's Clues. Steve, you're live.
Hey, I'm live. That's great. A lot of people think I'm dead. That's fantastic. It's great to be live.
I'm glad you're alive too.
Yeah, I Googled the conditions for life the other day, and I meet pretty much every single one of them. I'm very much alive. I feel great. I guess the last rumor was car crash, right? That's the last one that I heard.
How do you think that started?
We really have no idea. I think that perhaps if I had to guess, I would say that it has something to do with, I guess kids' TV show hosts in general make pretty good targets for, it's pretty fun to corrupt them. You know what I mean? Something that is seemingly so pure. There's a lot of mileage in assuming that person died of a drug overdose, or But we really don't know. We really don't know. But we live in a different age now. Things are on the internet and they become indelible and they become a form of true, as we're seeing, very recently. The facts aren't always what gets traction. It becomes difficult to dispel an internet rumor. That's for sure.
Right. And Blue's Clues itself, it was a lot bigger than just your average children's TV show. It had a really big following.
I guess so, yeah. We were doing pretty well there in the mid-'90s and a little beyond. We were all very surprised, I think, with the success and very, very pleased. But from my perspective, I guess it's only now 20 years later that I'm starting to process any of that. My experience with Blue's Clues was very focused, and we were very busy, and I was on a blue screen all by myself every day, just working hard. And, I didn't really understand that it was having the impact that it had.
And looking back on that, did you genuinely enjoy working on that show?
I loved being the host of Blue's Clues, and I'm ferociously proud of it, and I wouldn't trade that for the world. I can honestly say now, I wouldn't wish being in every take of every shot every day on a blue screen on really anyone. It's a difficult. It was a difficult gig. One that I loved, but you burn out pretty quick that way. I remember when they were shooting the prequels to Star Wars all those years ago, and Ewan McGregor was publicly very exhausted in the press about working on a green screen. I was like, dude, you have no idea. They're helping you out in every way possible. They've got people dressed in green suits for you to act with. I didn't even have marks. We were just basically in the bottom of a swimming pool every day. So yeah, the making of the show was difficult. It really was. And, but being the host of Blue's Clues was wonderful.
So you think saving the empire is hard? Try Blue's Clues. Some rough stuff.
Exactly, yeah. You think saving the empire is hard? Try figuring out what Blue wants for snack, dude.
That's a big fate resting on your shoulders.
Sure is.
So another one of the biggest controversies or curiosities that kind of surrounds Blue's Clues is why you quit. What caused you to step down from your role as Steve?
It's so funny that that people are even wondering about that. It wasn't so much like I quit as it was just like, okay, we're done now. I mean, I did it for like a million years, and it just became, looking back, because people are asking me this a lot now. The reality is that it was kind of like, whoa, I'm supposed to be this this sort of kid, sort of not a kid, I guess, sort of inhabiting an older brother kind of space, and I was just getting old, man. Like I was in my 30s, I was losing my hair. Just like, maybe this is the right time, and also, in the life of any show like that, I believe, you kind of start out and you're like a punk rock band, it's just you and like 6 people against the world, and you've got this crazy idea, and then everyone starts to move on to other shows, and then you kind of look around and you're the only original gangster left. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, it really was just a very natural moment of, okay, I feel like this is over now. It wasn't, I didn't throw down the stripes and quit or anything like that. It was just, it just seemed like the right time.
Right. And it's so cool for somebody like me to see that progression in your career too, because I remember watching you whenever I was like 5 years old eating a bowl of macaroni. Like I remember the last episode where Steve went off to college and like I remember the emotions that elicited in me.
Wow.
But then too, it's cool to follow your career and see the music that you made afterwards and the album that you're releasing coming up here and all of that cool stuff that's almost evolved with your audience. How we still get to follow you through that journey is really cool for us, I'm sure it is for you too.
Well, I have to tell you, none of that was intentional. I'm really glad to hear you say that you remember that moment when we went to college, because, man, there was another take of that was so much sadder. It was just so much sadder, but we kind of we often used the one that was kind of in the middle, you know what I mean? But, I'm glad that people felt that, and I feel like all these things that you mentioned post Blues Clues as a career were really just sort of fortunate hobby things that happened. I mean, I didn't leave Blues Clues to pursue a music career. I left Blues Clues and then had the opportunity of a lifetime to work with my favorite band. That was coincidence. And because of that wonderful coincidence, I forged a great friendship with Stephen Drozd, and we've always enjoyed making music together, mostly just hanging out together. And we decided, actually what happened is we wrote a song for Nickelodeon about groundhogs together. And as we were writing that song, we just thought, we got to do a kids album. And so that's what we did. And we just did it on weekends. I mean, he was raising his family and he was busy with his gigantic, enormous band. And, I was working. So we just kind of did it when we could over the course of a zillion years, So I think it's interesting that you perceive these things, I guess, as a career or something, but they're really just kind of me capitalizing on little golden nuggets of opportunity over the last 10 years.
That's so cool. I love that, because that's honestly the mission statement of GigSalad too. We want to help people do what they love, but also turn it into a lucrative hobby or a career or just something that you can pursue and not worry about. Like, I could be like working in an office right now, or I could have a 9-to-5, but you can take those hobbies and make something out of them. So it's so cool to see that you've done that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I think coming off of that kid show, I was afforded some opportunities. I was extremely lucky. You know what I mean? I think the concept of a lucrative hobby, boy, that's just a beautiful idea, isn't it?
And you know what's funny too is I think coming off of Blues Clues, and granted, take this as just my perception, but coming off of Blues Clues and then making like an alternative rock album, I think it kind of took everybody by surprise that it was really good. Mm-hmm. The first time I listened to it, I was like, well, I'm actually really enjoying this. Like, it was almost a shock to me, but it's good material. Like, I was expecting it to have, like Periwinkle meowing in the background or something, but it was really, really good music.
Yeah, I mean, that was sort of the most fun part of it, is that everyone expected that record to suck. There's tremendous precedent for records like that to suck, to just be so bad. But I mean, let's be honest, I had the Flaming Lips helping me. You know what I mean? Like that helped a lot. But the story of that is I happened to just know somebody who knew somebody who knew Dave Fridman, who is the producer of the Flaming Lips. And when I heard the record, The Soft Bulletin in 1999, it just completely rewired my brain. I loved that record so much. And I'd always been a musician. And even all through Blues Clues, I had always been super interested in recording software and writing my own music. And that was always my hobby. That was kind of how I unwound, so I had hard drives full of music that I was writing. And I sent that producer, Dave Fridman, a CD of 4 of my tracks just because I don't know where I found the balls to do it, but I did it. And he confessed later that he listened to them because he thought they were going to be so wonderfully bad. And, but then he called me. He's like, "Did you write these? These are actually really good. What did you want to do? Did you want to work with them?" And I just said, "No, I just wanted you to hear them," but so then I had an opportunity to go work with him. And he said, "While you're up here at the studio, Stephen Drost will be here. He's working on some stuff for their new record, which became Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robots." And so when I went up there, I met him. And within 10 minutes, we were sitting on the floor writing ridiculous songs. And he asked if he could play drums on a couple of my tracks. And then he just became more involved. And he took my material and made it from okay to much, 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 much better than it was. And that's sort of been the story of our musical collaboration ever since.
You're listening to the GigSalad Greenroom interviews. Valentine's Day is just around the corner, and whether you're planning a romantic occasion with someone special or a fun evening with some friends, we want to help you make it unforgettable. Just go to gigsalad.com to find out how we can help you book something awesome.
GigSalad.
You're listening to the GigSalad Greenroom interviews.
I like this salad.
You guys have an album coming out this February called Foreverywhere, correct?
That's right. Yeah, it's an album of what we're calling everybody music. Coming from children's television and Stephen Drost coming from the Flaming Lips, those two things combined, we really took our honest shot at making music that was certainly for kids, but certainly for adults. That was maybe both, but decidedly either. You know what I mean? And and we're very proud of it. And that comes out late February.
From what I've heard of it already, just the singles that you've released, it was another one of those things where I wasn't sure what I was expecting. There's unicorns and rainbow princesses and all kinds of stuff going on. And what's weird is it kind of resonates with you as an adult because it's just genuinely good music, but it seems to kind of ignite that childlike curiosity in everybody too. It's a really cool combination.
Oh, great. Well, thank you for saying that. Yeah. We wrote that one song about unicorns and rainbow princesses because of a note that I had gotten. We had written a bunch of other songs and we had been playing it for some people, and I got a note back from a high-level person at a very high-level children's entertainment company, and they said, you need stuff for like girls, like rainbows and princesses and stuff, and I couldn't believe that. Just bothered me so much that we kind of said, oh yeah, let's use all the cliches in the song, but let's make it Ziggy Stardust. You know what I mean? So that was kind of our attempt at using those sort of what are really kind of like, kids music cliches and maybe turning them on their head a little bit and making them more expressive and more romantic, in a sense than you're used to hearing, than you might expect from children's music.
And for anybody who hasn't heard it, it's really good. Just go on YouTube. The band's called STEVENSTEVEN. The album's called Foreverywhere, and it'll blow your mind. It's super trippy, but it's super intriguing. It's such good music.
Well, that's actually the first song in a trilogy. There are 3 songs. There's a whole story about what happens to that lonely unicorn after he loses his rainbow princess to cosmic forces beyond his control. There's a whole story about that. And we have a website too, STEVENSTEVEN.com. Just Stephen, to the name twice with a V twice.com. And you can see the video there as well.
Speaking of being a rock star, I heard you tell a story one time about whenever you were actually still on the set of Blue's Clues, where you crashed a party with a Playboy model who sent her phone number to you in the mail. Is that right? What happened there?
That is a much longer story, but those are definitely some of the highlights of it. Yeah, you can check that out online if you there's a whole story about it. It's if you look up famousness Steve Burns on Google, you can see it. It's a story I told for The Moth several years ago, and it's all 100% true, and it's pretty funny. But yeah, I went on this date with this woman who was she was gorgeous, and she had done a lot of modeling. But one of the things she did was she had modeled for Playboy, and I couldn't believe that she wanted to go out with me. So we went out, and one of the things that happened was I had just done a Make-A-Wish event a day or two earlier, and I still had some Blue's Clues swag, and I actually had the outfit from Blue's Clues in the trunk of my car at the time. And as I picked her up, and as we were leaving her neighborhood, I had noticed a bunch of signs that made it very clear that some kid named Jonathan was having a Blue's Clues party. And I had only known this person for minutes, but I said, do you mind if we stop in? We got to blow this kid's mind. And we did. I threw on this shirt, and I just showed up in his backyard with a bag of Blue's Clues toys. And I said, "Hey man, where's Jonathan? Happy birthday." And it was awesome. It was so fun. It was such a fun thing.
Best birthday ever. I'm sure that kid still tells that story too.
Well, I mean, the kids were cool with it. The dad was like, "Who is this guy?" but the woman I was on a date with smoothed things over and said, no, that's really him. That's really him. This is all cool. And yeah, we stayed for like 20 minutes. It was really cool.
That's such an awesome story. And if anybody hasn't heard it, go look it up. The full version is hilarious. You had me in stitches listening to that. You have such a multifaceted career, doing stand-up and music and children's acting and voiceovers and all kinds of things. So one day, whenever your career comes to an end, whenever you retire or find something else that you want to do, how do you want people to remember you?
Oh boy, maybe just as someone who was kind, generous. I've never been very comfortable with even the very, 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 very small degree of fame that I had, but if they would remember anything that I did publicly, I would certainly hope that Blue's Clues would be one of the things they remembered. I mean, I'm so proud of that. And I mean, looking back at that it was a lifetime ago, and it seems like several lifetimes ago for me now. And the further away I get from it, the more precious it seems. What a cool thing to get to do. I mean, when I think of my childhood and I think of Grover and what Grover meant to me, and to think that I might be in even a small way somebody's Grover is so cool. It's just so cool. So, I don't know what the rest of my career will be, but if people just remembered me as the lovable man-child who got excited when they got the mail and helped them learn to read, that would be wonderful. It's
cool for me to hear you say that, because I know for people like me and my generation, and people who are right now like late teens, early 20s, who remembered watching Blue's Clues, you have essentially an entire generation of people who grew up with basically you as their best friend.
Boy.
Sometimes can't even tell the difference between reality and that guy on the TV screen, but they're interacting with this guy who, teaches them how to talk to Blue and how to check the mail and all kinds of things like that. So it's interesting to hear you say that, because from the opposite side of that equation, people who watched you growing up kind of resonate with that, and that they remember having that connection with you before you even stepped down from Blue's Clues or moved on to anything else or even put out the next episode. They felt like you were their best friend.
You know, that is such an amazing thing. And that's what always, that was always what drew me to the show, as a young actor was that possibility, was the possibility that, oh wow. So the gig here is that I am going to attempt to cultivate a realistic, not real, but a realistic relationship through this camera, and make that relationship viable in such a way that any kid watching this will believe, if possible, that I am talking directly to them and that I can hear them and that we're having an actual conversation. And no one's really ever done that before. And Fred Rogers did, but we did it a little differently, in that I sort of was pretending that I could hear the home viewer. We were taking the relationship very, very literally. You know what I mean? Once we saw that that was working, I started to become kind of uncomfortable, you know? And thank God that Blue's Clues was so brilliantly written and so brilliantly researched and so carefully done, because 20 years later, people are saying, yeah, dude, I believe that you were talking to me. And it just speaks to the enormous power of television and media in general. And, as it relates to children, and how careful we need to be, you know, what a powerful tool we have.
Well, on behalf of an entire generation, thanks for taking that job seriously, because I think you really made a huge difference in a lot of people's lives.
Wow. Well, I can't take all the credit for that, but thank you for saying that.
So as we wrap up here, do you have any advice for somebody who's trying to get into acting or music or stand-up or any of these fields that you've explored in your career?
Oof. Oh boy, I would hate to encourage anyone to necessarily do those things. I would say expect to support those things. Don't expect those things to support you. I moved to New York City with about $350 and a duffel bag full of dirty clothes and books, right? And I expected completely to fail very privately and come back to Pennsylvania. You know, I never expected ever to have any sort of even sustaining success, you know? So, and to this day, I never expect any of these things that I do to be lucrative, as we said before, or financially sustaining. You know, I see them as things that I need to sustain. And I think people get into trouble when they are when they look for a career in the arts, especially the performing arts, because they're looking for some sort of system in their lives that provides money or validation or something like that. I think when you're looking at it that way, you're most probably headed for disappointment. So do it because you love it, I guess, is the cliche way of saying that.
Steve Burns, the man, the myth, the legend. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you so much. Have a good day.
STEVENSTEVEN's new album, Foreverywhere, will be released on February 24th, and it's available for pre-order right now on iTunes, Amazon, and their website, StevenSteven.com. Be sure to keep up with Steve Burns on Twitter and Instagram at Steve Burns Alive, and don't forget to follow and subscribe to the GigSalad Greenroom interviews on SoundCloud or iTunes. And if you like what you hear, go ahead and leave us a review. Your feedback always helps. For everyone here in the GigSalad Greenroom, I'm Destin Harrison. Thanks for listening.